Good morning, everyone. My name is Brian Sommer, and I'm a technology industry analyst. I spend probably half my life in Silicon Valley, and I've been doing that for almost 30 years. So bear with me. I'm going to run through some what I call the tomorrow's HR headlines today. I'm going to tell you what I think are some of the big things coming up. And of course, this is the technology that needs to change for tomorrow is this. There we go. First thing, the first headline I want you to focus in on is that we're already seeing a work environment where people now work for computers, they work for machines, they work for artificial intelligence, algorithms, and bots. They don't work for other people today. I've gone to some very automated plants, like one of them actually makes caulk tubes, a pretty pedestrian kind of thing. But workers show up, and the systems know when they come in the door because of sensors in their ID badges and the like. Their cell phones go off, or tablets go off, and tell them what machine to go to, what to fix, what to repair, what to replenish, what to replace. And they do this all day long without talking to another human being. They can do this for weeks on end. And where we're getting to is a world where if you're in HR, you've got to start thinking about who writes the performance review for someone who never talks to another human being. Or can you fire somebody because they talk back to a bot? Because I'd do that. Anyway, we've got a bunch of things going on. The sensor count, when you just do the math, in growth in IoT and other type of sensors, we're expected by almost any conservative estimate, between 50 and 75 billion new sensors out there before the year 2020. And that's only a little over 2 years from now. But the world only has about 7 billion people, and only about 3 billion of those are actually employable. So what you've got is an awful lot of machines doing what the movie character E.T. does, phone home all the time because they need patching, fixing, repairing, replenishing, whatever. Your job in HR is to rethink what is the role of HR. Is it just to deal with people, or is it to deal with the systems that deal with people? And that's going to be a big new growth area in the space. Another thing I want you to think about, another headline, is that every HR system pretty much that's been out there for the last 20-odd years was designed at a time when technology was incredibly constrained. There never was enough memory, there never was enough throughput, there wasn't enough processor speed, disk storage, I can go on and on. It was all constrained. In fact, I can still find some software products that still show vestiges of 80-column punch cards in the file format structures. A lot of this stuff out there, it's old as sin. But the fact, and I wish I had this in rupees, but $99 for 5 terabytes in the United States, that is an incredibly cheap price for a humongous amount of storage. And yet you can buy this all day long. The interesting thing with HR is that most people only think about an HR application as something that only extends as far as the 4 walls of your enterprise. And that's no longer the case. It doesn't have to be constrained as the technology was. And I'll give you some more examples of that in a moment. There's another issue coming up around pre-crimes. Anybody here ever see Minority Report, the Tom Cruise film? Okay, got a few brave souls. And on this one, what's happening now, this is a slide from an Ernst & Young software product they have. It can scan your firm's emails, text messages of your employees, other unstructured data like images of invoices, and it looks for things like based on where a document came from, where it originated, if it contains certain phrases or words like a facilitation fee, that could indicate that there's a possible corruption issue about to unfold. Now, from an HR perspective, the fact that you could catch it is great, but do you discipline somebody who just received the email that didn't actually initiate it? And so we've got some new ethical kind of challenges coming up because of this. And don't think it's just around fraud. There are pre-crimes happening all over in new HR technology because you now have algorithms suggesting whether you should come to work for this company or not, or whether you belong on a particular team, and I can go all the way down the list. And the problem is you're being prejudged as a human being as to whether you fit in or not without any human interaction and no right to appeal. in a lot of cases. So I think we're on a real ethical kind of conundrum here about what do we do with these kind of technologies. Let's take it a step further. There's a Utah software company called HireVue, and they're a big player in the video interviewing space. They have a tool called Intelligent Assessment. And what they can capture in a 5 to 15-minute video interview are 25,000 data points about you, how you did on that interview. Now they'll listen for things like, they'll listen to all the words you used in your word choice, and from that they can actually impute your IQ score. How smart are you? Yeah. They can, when they hit you with a great question, if you did this, if you like stop for a second and your head tilted up and your eyes kind of looked up as well, then they know you were engaging the creative aspects of your brain. And they're collecting 25,000 of these in under 5 minutes. I don't care how good of a recruiter you are, I don't think you can top them from what they can do from their machine tools. But the question you have to ask yourself is, if I get challenged and am hauled into a court, can I defend decisions that we make relying on tools like this? And there are some new regs coming out of the European Union that are being specifically targeted at technologies like this. Can you guys hear me? Am I halfway successful in scaring you so far this morning? All right, another big headline has to do with how big data is going to redesign recruiting. This is not terribly new, but I just find it rather fascinating that the way companies like the Smashflies and Telos and Connect6 and others, how they view the addressable workplace is not based on a limited geography or a vertical. They look at like the 3 billion addressable workers on the entire planet as who belongs possibly in the top of the recruiting funnel. There's a bunch of these kind of technologies coming, but what they do is they make people actually stop and think, why are we still doing the way of recruiting and other HR functions the way we did the last 50, 60, 100 years? Why don't we radically blow that thing up and do it a different way? And this is a good example of that. Now let me take it a step further. This is, and I apologize for those of you in the back of the room, or if you're getting up there like I am and you need to wear glasses, you might not be able to read all the logos. But this little black dot right in the middle, it says ERP/HR software. That's how small the importance of these kind of technologies has gotten, the core ones that you buy like with an ERP package. They're just not as relevant because what happened is the processes today actually exploded. And most business processes now occurs outside not only the four walls of your enterprise, but occurs in a lot of other databases that nobody has any control or visibility to in a traditional system. So let me give you an example. My son graduated college a couple of years ago, and I sat down and talked with a bunch of the campus recruiting leads at some major universities. And I wanted to find out something because when I graduated back during the Paleolithic era, we had just moved up from stone tablets for sign-up sheets to papyrus or something like that. And I asked these folks, I go, well, now we're in such a digital age, and every kid from like 10 years old has a cell phone now or a smartphone. I'm guessing what you do is you send out email and text message blasts to let people know that you're coming to campus. And the recruiting office people go, yeah, we do that. I go, and because of that, they must fill up the sign-up sheets in nanoseconds. And she goes, wrong. They won't respond for 48 to 72 hours. And the reason is quite interesting. First one is that the first thing a student does is they go vet out a potential employer on Glassdoor, Google, and a whole bunch of other sites because, and I can't believe the hubris in this, they need to find out if your firm as an employer is worthy of their time. Then they're going to go talk to their tribe. That's exactly the way she described it. Their peers out there to find out what do they think about your firm and your company. Then she told me about a couple other things. She said if the students often will go to a site called Safety Web because it will crawl the internet for that student and find all those questionable party pictures and everything else they've left scattered all over the internet, and will tell them to go remove them or change them or do something with them. Employers, I found out, are using just the opposite tool called social intelligence to go find out, of all the kids that signed up, which ones were stupid enough to leave this stuff hanging out there on the internet. I'm not going to drain this whole slide. My point in telling you all this is that huge amounts of digital exhaust are out there in all these different mobile-empowered, third-party, big data stores, and that's what your process. This is just campus recruiting. This is going to be true for every one of your HR processes, and the question is, have you guys actually paid attention to how dramatically they've changed? I'll only say a word or two. You guys know a lot about robotic process automation, but man, it is killing jobs. There's a Costa Rica shared service facility I just got some stats on. They used to have 500 workers doing accounts payable invoice processing. They're down to 8 now, because 8 for doing this kind of work. We know it's really going to hit the clerical ranks hard, but if it can be proceduralized, it is, and that's just the nature of the way competition's changing. A couple of other points I want to hit you with. One is that algorithms that are relying on this big data, they need to have a couple things to be effective and useful for you. They have to have a feedback mechanism so that when they make mistakes, you have a way to train it, to teach the algorithm so it doesn't replicate that bias in future decisions. Most of the products that have a black box in them have no feedback mechanism or none that you can get your hands on. And that is a liability problem and an issue for you guys. You're also going to need to develop a bunch of skills that are going to handle these kind of tools, and I'll talk some more on that in just a second. The other thing I think you have to think about when you rethink how you want to look at HR is it's not about transaction processing anymore. It's about anticipating things. Anticipating who do we put on a team, who do we hire, who's going to quit, who's going to quit if we don't promote them, and on and on. It's all this anticipatory stuff, and it utilizes a lot of other big data. I love, there's Intello I mentioned on another slide. They monitor social media about the prospects you want to possibly hire. And what they can determine is, say, this gentleman here in the green vest, he might be somebody we want to hire, but it turns out that his significant other just accepted a new job, maybe with a company 400 miles away, and that may mean now that guy might be interested in making a move. And it's monitoring the social media of that person's deepest and most intimate connections that tip you off to that. So in HR, what you're going to need going forward, you know all these. You're going to need all these kind of skills that don't probably exist in your departments today, whether it's on social sciences and robotics and all that. You're going to need it in your companies. And you're going to need that also because you're going to have to imagine what this new future looks like. You will have to do this transformation. And there's more of this. It's going to impact every single one of these areas. And what I'm leading up to is that every single piece of assets that your company has, it's people, its technology, and its processes, they all have a when best used by or best sell by date on them. And I know that sounds callous to think that there's people walking around with a barcode that says their skills are going to expire on a certain date, but everything needs to be sunset planned. And when you know when these dates are, then that gives you runway time to plan and train people to be able to accept the next generation of change and capability that your organization is going to need. Think of this, like I said, as an expansion of what a succession plan is really all about, and that applies to your technology and to your processes. On your technology, I just want to remind you of this. I'm fond of saying in the States that most technology, HR technology, most companies use it longer than most couples stay married. We're going to invert that. The useful life of these products is going to go down and down and down because it's going to get reinvented and changed ever more frequently. We're not on a linear change path anymore. You need to get out there and get cosmopolitan. That's the only way you're going to be able to know what's going on. It's actually good to see so many of you in a show like this because you need to be out there kicking tires and understanding what are the possibilities of what is truly available in the marketplace today. And the worst problem, though, out there is this mess. I see it all the time at clients. I use the British phrase, a dog's breakfast. It is the most unappetizing mess of junk that's been stitched together with Band-Aids, baling twine, and a whole bunch of other things that I wouldn't want to guess that's holding it together. But this mess is so poorly connected and integrated and patched up that you can't connect all of these new big data stores or these new generation technologies to this mess. I mean, that's like taking a 50-year-old car and try and make it work like a Formula One race car. You know, there's been too much change, and your 50-year-old car has probably got a bunch of borrowed parts off of 2 or 3 other cars too that make it next to impossible to deal with. Many of you probably have companies that have a big problem here on your infrastructure. You can't be world class if your systems make your firm dysfunctional. You can't get there. So let me wrap up. My main message is to you, the unconstrained technology that's out there, and I know I had to move fast in this, they've made this world in HR extraordinarily dynamic now and open to some very incredible possibilities. The amount of renovation work you're going to have to do is significant. It's going to change everything, the systems, the people, the processes, and the like. Don't underestimate how much that's going to be. And ask yourself, are you setting the strategic agenda for what it takes to be a great chief HR officer or for an executive committee member for your firm going forward? This is who I am. My Twitter handle's down there. Please send me a tweet. It'll give me some reason to check my phone here in a little bit this morning. But anyway, thank you very much.